Hello there, and welcome to Recon Pan Gaming. I'm Patrick. Today we're going to be going over the XWA points that were just recently released, and effective February 13th. We're going to go over first the document that explains what updates they made and why, and then we're going to go over the actual ship points updates to where we're going to explain what upgrades or upgrade slots were removed and added, and the points adjustments for that. Currently, the upgrades themselves were not adjusted. They didn't feel anything to be adjusted at this time. So let's get into it and go forward with the document. Okay, so this is going to be the Beta 4 upgrade or update. You can check out the links below to go and grab those documents real quick. And we're just going to cover the patch notes for this. We are going to cover other things besides just the points themselves because, this is a fan run or, community run version of X-Wing to where the points are going to be adjusted in the near future, especially after Worlds, because Worlds is coming up and AMG is still running those tournaments. There's still AMG points, which is why I've been delaying a lot of this because, we could cover more of these sorts of documents, especially some of the cards that were just released or leaked for the next kit that's going to be coming out. There's some standard loadouts for First Order and also the Resistance pilots, which are really cool looking. They're going to expand, especially Kylo with 3 Force, which we'll go over at another point. So we're going to now look at the patch notes for Beta 4 version. Basically, this is going to cover why they made the updates that they did for each ship almost, or each faction, and the general or basic notes that they did for most or all Force users. So they're just mentioning that most of the Force users are losing a talent slot and gaining either an extra modification or Force slot. And this is basically because there is a lot of redundancies. They don't want you double stacking things like Trick Shot and Shatter Shot. Or Shattering Shot, because they don't want a generic ship to all of a sudden have 5 attack power as well as the Force and such like that. The Galactic Republic are going to be keeping their talent slot because they stated those pilots will retain their talent slots as it is important and necessary part of their kit to make the ship efficient enough with how fragile it can end up being. So they're just keeping that slot for the Galactic Republic. That may change in the near future, and that doesn't mean that this is permanent. They may revert things back for specific ships or other ships such as Asajj Ventress, who is losing a talent slot, which might hurt that ship in the long run. I know a certain user likes to use Fearless with it, and adding Fearless with another Force ability is really great because then it can add to her, her power or her capabilities. But then also people can try to abuse that power, and they're trying to avoid such things. To the right, you'll see Han Solo. They've noticed that the YT-1300 has not been keeping in theme with this update, so they're upgrading the points. We'll cover those later. Same thing with Lando. They're boosting the loadout so that you can, look at Lando rather than just looking at Han, which is nice. They're trying to increase the playability of ships like that. You're going to get Empire. The Scythe 6 is going up to 4 points. You've got Decimators that are going to be increasing their loadout points for Chirno to where it might go up in points, but then also their loadout will go up as well, so it makes it more viable. You have the TIE Fighters, Howl Runner, the ISB, Iden, Moff. All these are getting more loadout to make them more viable because they are 4 points. So give them, of course, they know a shield upgrade or a hull upgrade. They anticipate this is going to be a staple because a lot of the other ships that have the 4 hull, like the standard loadouts, they are also worth 4 points. So they're trying to make it comparable to where you can look at Iden in the extended, or you can look at Iden in the standard loadout, or Howl Runner and vice versa, and say, okay, I can see that those are both comparable or comparable. I can decide to take one or the other if I want, rather than just saying, well, the standard loadout's clearly better. I'm not even going to look at Howl Runner because she doesn't have enough loadout. Next up, the Republic. We've got Anakin Skywalker and all things like the Y-Wing. Yes, the Y-Wing Skywalker, with all the loadout points that it was having, they're dropping it down so that you can't take all the things, basically sharing target locks and such like that. The Geonosian prototype is going to be going up in points because, again, the 3-point ship with certain chassis is almost auto include or very viable. Same thing with ships that are 2 points. They're almost auto includes in a lot of cases. So they're just trying to balance that out because what they don't want to see is everyone including a certain ship or even a certain pilot on a certain ship all the time. So they're just seeing what it's going to be when they make those adjustments and how often it'll be taken at that point. And then, of course, we have the Resistance. They're going to be making some changes to the YT 1300 pilots, such as Ray and Han. They're going to be going up in squad points, but then also having a nice increase to the loadout, which might make it a little bit, harder to fit certain other chassis with it. But it also gives you more loadout so that you can equip more things to it, maybe try new combinations, and make those extra points worth it. Next up is, of course, First Order with the Whisper chassis. You will see an increase in loadouts for a lot of those ships because they're trying to make it to where the named or even generic pilots are a viability instead of just being completely overlooked because there's a Force user with that chassis. And the Force user almost always is better in the long run, not because just the Force, but because of abilities and other things that you can mix and match with it. So they're trying to make those ships just as viable as, if not better, than the Force user. And lastly, the Scum. So, as you can see, there's only one Scum pilot that's named in this, and it gets its whole dedicated page, which is the Han Solo. They're going to be increasing the pilot to 6 points and also the loadout because 5 they just thought was way too cheap. You saw it in a lot of lists in recent tournaments, and they're trying to limit that ship from being taken, or at least be the must-have ship in your list because it's just too cheap. So that was the beta version 4 patch notes. You can go check those out in the link below if you want to continue reading the full description on why they made a lot of changes. And now we're going to head into the actual ship points document, and we're going to cover each ship that they made a change to, no matter how insignificant. And the first one we're going to look at is, of course, Ezra Bridger in the Gauntlet. And then first thing you'll notice is the talent slot is gone and the extra added Force slot as they discussed in the patch notes. So the reason they're doing this, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of redundant things that have been happening or released, such as Trick Shot and Shattering Shot. They basically are the same exact thing to where if you shoot through an obstacle, you get to add an extra attack die. And then there is a ship that can go from all of a sudden 3 attack power to 5 without even trying, except for adding certain upgrades. The other thing that they mentioned was, of course, adding something like Debris Gambit to a ship that doesn't have a native evade action, and that can make a Force user even harder to kill. When I was playing in 2nd edition, I used to love Inquisitors because they were native with a Force ability. I could then take an evade, and they're really hard to kill, especially with 3 defense dice. And that just prolonged the game longer till I can get into a position where I could then take the advantage. And as I stated before, this might not be permanent. They may see that certain ships require or really haven't any sort of advantage with taking a Force with a talent slot, and they'll return it to certain ships and keep ones like, Kylo, Vader, to where they're strictly going to be Force users with no talent slot. The other question you may ask is this really going to hurt me in the long run? You can leave a note down below. Let me know what you think about Ezra Bridger, specifically losing a talent slot. Is this going to keep you from taking him as a pilot? Is this now going to actually open up new avenues that you can take so that you can now field him rather than someone else? Or is it like, it really doesn't affect me in the slightest. I can't even imagine why they'd do such a thing. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to edit this section out because I was laughing too hard. Because, as you can see, Han Solo, and I don't think I can recall. Maybe you can, to where a ship went up by 2 points for a ship cost. I've seen it go up and down by 1. I have never seen 2, or at least I can't recall. But it just makes me laugh because certain people may see this as a slight against them, and they may rage on the internet. But the other thing is you can see that it also went up 16 upgrade points. And if you've been around here long enough, and they've even mentioned it in the patch notes, yes, this might be a return of Handbrake Han. This might, see a return of certain things that just really aren't fun to play against. However, as they also note that a 9 cost ship is almost half your points. If you really want to go the gauntlet at a tournament with a 9-point ship and, try to hammer out as many other partnerships with it, maybe some 3-point ships and then toss a 4-point ship in there to kind of make it a 4-ship list and see where you get with that. Because if all of a sudden the word spreads that Handbrake Han is coming in to the game again, and if you don't know what that is, you can easily just look it up on YouTube or any of the forums. It's basically a ship that could decide whether or not to move, and made it to where it was either hard to hit or it could reposition itself easily and figure out the best mode scene after everything has moved. So it was really irritating to deal with. The other side of the coin is this ship is so expensive, it might not be worth taking, and all I have to do is eliminate Han, which is not an easy task, but if I've set up my list to do that, or at least incorporate that into my list building, then he might not see a return, and you might even see Han take a sideline for a while until they figure out what else could they do with him. Maybe bring him down to 8 points and reduce his loadout, or maybe bring it back down to 7 and then give him almost no loadout. And then we head over to Lando, who only got looks like a 3-point bump in his loadout, which is just going to give you a little bit more of a cushion, a little bit more of a list of upgrades, which I know I used to, of course, like to take Neon Numb with Trick Shot on top of Engine Upgrade and the title. And then even if I don't think I could fit the co-pilot, but I remember I was able to take not Jan Ors, but Jin Urso, so that way I could take a focus and an evade in the same turn and just make him a little bit more harder to kill and then maintain his offense. And then when he wasn't either taking shots or didn't have anyone shooting at him, pass out an action to someone else. So I do like that they've increased his crew. The 7 points also is pretty good. I like that, and I might even start taking that list again. All right, we're going to head down a little bit more. The only A-Wing that was affected was, of course, Ahsoka, because she is a Force user. They have removed the talent slot because it already has 2 Force abilities, and so instead they gave it another modification slot, which is pretty good. At 16 points, you might be able to throw a shield upgrade or hull upgrade on there, and then include some Force to make it a little bit more powerful. Also, you can, of course, take the missile slot to where you can just roll up, target lock something, and then start unloading on it. So still very viable ship. At 5 points, though, it is rather expensive. That's a quarter of your list. But again, it is a Force user, and you can't now use those combinations that you might have done before with the talent slot. As we scroll down, we now come to Luke Skywalker. 5 points still with only 5 loadout. They, of course, removed the talent slot, added a Force slot. When you come to ships like this, I know that XWA is testing out aces with a low ship cost and a low loadout because, again, a lot of these ace pilots have really crazy abilities. Like Luke is actually really good to where every time you shoot at him, he regains a Force. He keeps 2 Force all the time. If he target locks and has no one shooting at him, it's basically full mods on offense. The only thing is they're limiting, torpedoes. You only can take certain ones, and same thing with the droids. And with talent slots, I don't see him super overpowered because he only has 5 points to play with. But again, this is them just testing to see what people are going to come up with, what creativity they're going to see in the long run, to where maybe someone will use 2 Force on Luke rather than the talent and the Force, or maybe they saw something to where Luke with the talent slot is still just too good. Let's see what they can do with 2 Force. Now we can head all the way down to Empire because that's it for the Rebels. They did not make any other changes to any other ships, at least that I can tell. Everything is just basically the Han Orlando, and then also they've made changes to all the Force users, which it is a pretty short list for Rebels. They don't have too many, which when we head to the Empire, we see that a lot of ships are going to be affected because there are group of Force users such as the TIE Advance V1 and Darth Vader himself. So all of them are losing their talent slots. The fifth brother and the seventh sister are gaining an extra Force, as well as the modification slots, and including Grand Inquisitor and the others, and Baron and the Inquisitor, they're all getting modification slots as well. Again, for the same reason. There are varying levels of upgrade points that they can spend for each thing. So there are going to be some crazy combinations that you will see with 2 4 slots, and it's going to be interesting because I might take a look at Inquisitors again, especially at 4 points each. I would love to run maybe 4 of them with Howl Runner, or maybe 3 of them like I did in the olden days with Iden and Howl, because that I just love that combination, especially when they could take native evades. And I now have enough points to stick on Howl and Iden to where I can really boost them and punish you for trying to shoot at them. And if you try to shoot at the Inquisitors, even though they can't really use Iden's ability, they have a force. They take the evade. Again, they're really hard to kill. And even though it's 2 dice, it's death by 1,000 cuts. And a 5 ship list, it would bring such a smile to my face to run that list again because I haven't done it in so long. And because Inquisitors have 13 points, I can throw another shield upgrade, or I think I have enough points for that, or even a hull upgrade on them. And I can even try to include maybe a system or a force ability. I will carve a little bit out for Darth Vader in the X1. I mean, talent slots are really good on Vader because you can do things like crack shot. You can do things like the trick shot, even though I don't think a lot of people put trick shot on Vader. But, if he's moseying along, shooting through a rock, what's better than 4 attack dice than just the native 3 if he has a lock on somebody? And I mean, I could keep going down the list of things that he could equip, but now I don't really have to worry about them. I just have to worry about force abilities such as hate and all of the other generic things that usually people stick him with. And he's at 6 points with 12 loadout, so there is room there for him. That's the only change they made to him. And also, I can't, argue because you already have the standard loadouts for Battle of Yavin and then Black Leader. These are really good standard loadouts. The, only reason I might take the Black Leader that you actually can upgrade or add upgrades to is because I don't have 7 points available on my list. So, dealer's choice. Let me know what you think about that. If Darth Vader is, not the same with that talent slot, or it doesn't matter. I just take the standard loadouts anyways, so it's not going to affect me. We're going to scroll down further. We have Second Sister in the Interceptor. Again, losing a talent slot, gaining a force slot with 15 loadout for a 5-point chassis. Pretty great ability, or at least a great monster, because she is the manipulative monster. Uh, I haven't flown her. I might give it a try, not because all of a sudden it has 2 force abilities, but because I finally just noticed her in this list and said, hey, that's actually a really good chassis and a really good ship for only 5 points. We're now going to head to the TIE Ellen fighters. We've got Iden Versio going up by 4 points, now to a total of 16. That's pretty big. I mean, has a mod slot, cannon slot. You can take a missile if you'd like, and 2 talents. That is a really good monster to take. Obviously, you can take things like the hull upgrade and the shield upgrade, which they're anticipating. But I could consider other things now, because with talent slots, I could consider things to where I might want to take an evasive and then also equip that with, some other empirical upgrade like relentless or something like that, to where I'm using that thing to its full abilities mixed with Howl Runner. And then I could equip it with a cannon and just really make this thing like a battering ram. Uh, I think that's just fun. There's so many opportunities and now instances I can do with that, especially with those 4 extra points. Moff Gideon going up by 5 points and is still staying at a 4 for the total points for the ship itself. You have the Scythe 6, like they said, is going up to 4 points, because what happens when you do, beta testing and all things like this is you start to see trends. You start to see ships being auto includes, or usually when somebody makes a list, they either start with the ship, such as the Scythe 6, or they build a list and then they say, well, how many points do I have left? I have 3, Scythe 6. It's just one of those ships that you reflex grab for because you know it's good, you know what it can do, and there's nothing else comparable to it. Making it 4 points with still, no loadout because it is a standard loadout, they'll test that out, see what they can do with it. There's not much more they can because it is a fixed card, and it's almost as if, okay, we're going to put this off to the side because it's being taken too much. And that might mean that you never see it again, which might make it to where, okay, now you're just points fortressing it. You're not allowed to take this thing anymore. And, that might leave a bad taste in some players' mouth because it's a ship that they thoroughly enjoy, but it might also open up other opportunities because rather than going for that ship every single time, they'll see and utilize other ships that have capabilities that they didn't notice before, or combinations that they didn't have the ability to see because they just grab that generic ship every single time. Okay. So one of the biggest points I've seen in a while is Howl Runner with 7 more points going up to 18. This thing, of course, like you only have 2 talents and you also have the now modification, but I mean, you could take shield upgrade. You could take things like, squad leader or something to that effect, or, to where you can share initiative. You can take the crack shot. You can take the elusive to where, people are going to want to shoot at her, but it's not going to have the same effect like it used to, only because now there's so much more to look at and you can go up those upgrade slots rather than just looking at the, 4-point ones and really, you know, howl her or haha hone her out. But yeah, I think that's a great upgrade or update to Howl Runner. I would love to see her on the board again with some swarms or some mini swarms and stuff like that, because she used to be, the ship. And lately, I haven't seen her really in a long time, and she is one of the greatest ships to start the game. Last for the TIE fighters is the ISB. This ship has had a difficult past because at one point it was worth, might have been worth 2 points at one point, but then it went up to 3. And finally, that ship was also just another one of those auto includes that had to be adjusted. So it did go up to a 4-point chassis. And then again, you just saw it fall to the wayside because there were just more ships that you could take in its place. And that's the kind of thing that you struggle as now they can see when you're doing these points adjustments and trying to figure out how to make everyone happy. There really is no way to make everybody happy because even now it's gotten 10 extra loadout points. So now it's up to 18 and it gives a modification. So this thing can take a illicit, it can take a modification and a talent. You can load this with almost anything you want from either of those slots and may even have points left over. The question is it worth the 4-point chassis, which is basically the first barrier you're going to have to pass, because there are probably better 4-point chips that you could take, and then there's probably even a better 3-point chip that you can take rather than the ISB, which is why it is great to see it with more loadout. But unless somebody comes up with a combination to where they can verify that this thing is worth all of this effort, you're just not going to see it on the table as much as you used to. Like, I applaud their effort to try and make it to where people would want to play the ship, or at least give them the opportunity to try. But I just don't know if it's going to make a comeback like it did back in the day. All right, we're scrolling further down. I'm sorry for laughing because, Rear Admiral Chirano holds a special place in my heart, especially from first edition, to where I was taking one of the moths that could uh, it basically, if you suffered a crit, you could throw someone out the bay door and just turn that crit back over. It was one of the greatest combinations ever, especially when I played against other rack players, because what we would do is show each other the dark side and apply crits to each other. That way you couldn't shoot first or you couldn't use certain abilities or actions, but because I was able to cancel crits, I could basically negate their "I'll show you the dark side." So, I love the Decimator. It is such a cool and just basically very daunting ship. That's why it's the Dauntless. And you can now take him for 8 points, which is very pricey. As we covered, Han is now 9. This is almost half your list. However, they just shoved 14 points into this chassis, which is what this ship needs. They did cover why it was only 14 points, because they don't want combination of Vader and also the dark stormtroopers, so that you can stress somebody and then cause damage all day. But with 3 crew, a gunner, bombs, torpedoes, the title, You're definitely going to be able to fill this out with 24 points. I guarantee you that. I know I have, at least in the past. You will make this thing do something, whether that is be your damage output or just be a blockade that takes forever to chew through. And on top of that, every time you think you have it, it still just for some reason survives and then is able to keep surviving until you have to focus on it entirely. And it's just really, it's one of those ships that, I mean, it either dies the villain or lives long enough to be the hero. And I know that's in reverse, but that's just the way rack has worked for me in the past. um I would love to see maybe a double decimator list with another ship at 5 points, or maybe a 2 and 3 point ship, because there's nothing better than seeing two decimators out in the field and then trying to work with them. I mean, even maybe having a TIE fighter that can coordinate to rack just to make them even more devastating each and every turn, to where it's like, all right, I'm going to reinforce, I'm going to target lock, and because I have Vader, I got my force, let's go. You could shoot at me if you want to, but you're going to suffer for that, and I'm going to make you pay. And again, I just love that I can take this ship. It is a blast. Man, finally heading into the Scum. As you can see, there is two. It looks like there's two changes to the Scum, and that, of course, is the Asajj Ventress, which is a little bit further down. Oh, and Maul, I apologize, and Han Solo. So again, we've covered this multiple times with multiple ships. Han Solo was at 5 points and had what looks like 14 loadout. That ship, of course, everyone just starts with that ship and then builds up. And so they're trying to tell you, you don't just have to take Han, there is more out there. And that's one of the hardest messages to get out there, is when you are developing or making these points and trying to get it out there for people, they don't always see what could be possible. And so they just keep going for that ship that they know works. They've seen what upgrades work on that ship and what the strategy is. This kind of just makes you go towards in something else in another direction. This doesn't always work. And me personally, I think there is so much to Scum right now that you can take that a lot of people either forgot about or don't even bother because possibly they don't own it, or they just don't see the viability. But you really want them to try and figure it out for themselves. But what can happen is you eliminate a lot of players from playing what they want, and then they either go to a different faction or just stop playing altogether because what they liked is no longer an option for them. I mean, this still could work with 6 points, and you even have more loadout. So if there was something that you were eliminating from your Han, and you just now can put that back on there, and then just try and figure out which ship you could drop, take the cheaper version of it, and continue on your merry way. This could make it to where, let's say, and I'm just going to throw a random number out there. Let's say there's 50% of the Scum players are taking this exact ship and, a generic list, and this drops it down to 25% overall, then I would say that it was a successful adjustment to the points. You then have to pay attention to whether Scum no longer is most of the lists. It might balance out or filter down to other factions, which is great. I mean, as you know, a developer goes, you almost will never see to where, oh, every faction is represented and all the ships, everything's viable. That's never going to happen. But what you don't want to do is all of a sudden make an adjustment to a ship that clearly is making everything else obsolete. And then because of that adjustment, nothing is worthwhile. So next is Maul, obviously losing a talent slot, gaining a force. Me personally, I was taking Maul not in the Gauntlet Fighter, but in the Scimitar. I'm trying to think of what upgrade I used to put on him, which I can actually check real quick. Hold on. So after checking my list, yeah, I was taking Malice and Oppress, so I never was utilizing the talent slot there. Chances are that was happening with the Gauntlet Fighter if anyone was taking Maul. So again, I don't know how much this is going to affect players in the long run. All I know is from my list building, I don't think it's going to hurt me in the slightest. Not that it won't hurt you. And finally, we scroll down to Asajj. So this one might actually be difficult for me because I know a local player that likes using that talent slot. I don't know what, this thing could take advantage of. Yes, it could do some of the combinations to get a lot of boost in either offensive dice or, getting an evade as well as having the force. I don't know if I could see that with this ship or it abusing those things. So I would like to see the talent slot return to the ship. Of course, my opinion is 100% biased because I like seeing that ship on the table. I like, my local friend Kenny flying this ship, especially with Fearless, which is one of the generic Scum abilities that you can take with most of the Scum ships because of the talent slot. So, I mean, yes, my opinion is biased. Yes, I'd still like to see it return. And I don't think that Scum would take advantage of things like the First Order and also possibly the Empire. That was pretty quick with the Scum. Now we're going to head all the way to the Resistance, which basically it is only one ship that has changed, and that includes Han and Rey, and then also Poe. So you're going to see some adjustments. Han is going up by 1 point, which I'm actually shocked. I haven't seen that. I probably would have taken him at 1 point in the Resistance. I don't know if I've done that or if I 100% would. I'll probably still take him at 7 points because I love placing my ship so close to my opponent and then being, what the heck is that? This is Resistance Han. You don't know who that is? He just starts here. Um, and then him getting 15 loadout. My goodness. So back at 2.0, this is still an option that you can have. You put Pizzo or the droid on Han. You then take the little pod with Rose. You stick C3PO on, and then you just have Rose coordinate all the way to Han across the board. Give him engine upgrade, and now I actually started list building with this already and seeing what I can include on this ship because there's nothing better than this ship starting wherever he wants, as long as it's not range 3 of an enemy ship, and then plucking off a ship right away that either you use to grab points or use for coordinating or something. And then everyone just starts going after Han, and then he just takes off, and the rest of my list comes in. It's a great combination. It actually got me into a top cut at 1 point at a regionals. Like it was just such a fun combination, and no one knew what Han was because nobody ever took him. And then, of course, he got banned down the road once AMG took over. And I was confused about the title as well. I didn't understand why he wasn't able to take the title until I started list building, and then I realized it's Ray's Millennium Falcon, which we're not going to get into that. I could start a whole episode on why I think Ray's Millennium Falcon is the most ridiculous named card I could ever think of. But yeah, you could now take Ray's Millennium Falcon on the Millennium Falcon's Han Solo's Millennium Falcon. But I understand later in the movies it does become her Falcon, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, we've got Poe Dameron losing 3 points. I'm going to assume that's for loadouts that could go on it, and those 3 points are going to make the chopping block for at least one of the upgrades or combinations that you could put with it. And then Ray. Oh man, I I think I could start another whole episode on just Ray's ship, because with the now cost going up to 8, the loadouts going up by 7. I mean, they again losing the talent slot, but again, there are so many other things that you could pick with the Force, and then include in the crew, the gunners, the illicits, and of course a missile slot. This ship has been, I wouldn't say controversy, but it's definitely been a thorn for a long time, just because the abilities that you can match with Finn, with the title or the Falcon, Ray's Millennium Falcon, to where it just basically can sloop all day. It gets to modify the dice in the front of its arc. You can even equip other crew that let you spend that blank die and gain a target lock so that when you do shoot, you can re-roll dice. You can team it up with heroic. Like, this thing is an incredible ship. it almost is nigh unkillable. You can kill it, but if in the right hands, you really can't. So you just try to pick off the other ships in the list and hopefully that you outscore them fast enough. Or Ray just kind of takes the wrong lane and is out of commission for a few turns. Like that's usually your best hope. But I can see them increasing the cost of the ship. And I at this point the upgrade slots, 28 points is ridiculous. I think it's not that people won't fill it. It's I think people will find what they want and then have points left over and just be like, I'm just going to throw this on because I have the points. I don't think it's going to all of a sudden make the ship better. It just will bring it down a few so that people can't abuse the 7 point cost of the chassis itself. Okay, so resistance is out of the way. We're going to head into first order, which not many changes other than what we covered in uh, the patch notes. So we have Kylo Ren in the silencer, losing the talent, gaining the force. We've covered why. I can understand because, as I've stated before, there is a heavy burden on the developers to try and make people happy. And I could spend a long time going over previous lists that have gone through the many versions of X-Wing, which you could say is a bad play experience. And what you really don't want to do for a game is make it to where there is a list out there that isn't, it's not good, but because people have played against it, it then reverberates out through the community that this is a bad list to play against. And what I can see is things like Kylo Ren that can take a 5-die attack at range 3, has you target locked, and shoots away as if it was an advanced proton torpedo at close range, spends the lock, spends some force, and all of a sudden you've got 5 damage on a ship that can't possibly survive. And I get that. I really do. I applaud them for taking this approach. It may not be seen as a positive step, but at least it's something to where for now you overcorrect and then hope that it doesn't cause too much damage and then make adjustments later and say, okay, we don't really see it coming from this ship, but this ship 100% is never going to get its talent slot back and it's going to only get force because we don't want to see that moment happen for new players alike or returning players to just come across something that goes, oh, cool, you have 5 dice. Yeah, okay, okay, 3 hits and 2 crits. Okay, I roll 1 die. Okay, well, that was fun. Have a good day. Have a good game. So I definitely can see that happening, which is why I'm not too upset about this change. Now we're going to cover the last part of First Order, which you'll see the Whisper, Modified Interceptors, Kylo Ren, Nightfall, Whirlwind, and Wrath all getting bumps to their upgrade slots. So Kylo's getting a 3-point, losing the talent, gaining 2 modifications. Since he already has 2 force slots, I don't see them giving him a third, which is good for them. That I guess I could see that, trying to make him a little bit more, especially now that it has 2 mod slots and lost the talent, so they're trying to make up for those points. And then you have the Nightfall, Whirlwind, and Wrath all going up. Nightfall up to 8, Whirlwind up to 20, and Wrath up to 17. So it's not only that, they probably aren't seeing Kylo Ren, they're probably not seeing a lot of the modified interceptor, or at least giving more options for the first order players since they don't have a lot of ships options. And this is just making it to where they might be able to see something more with them. Because the silencers, those don't have a lot of upgrade points. Meanwhile, these ships do. And they probably want to see more of them on the table, which I really can see that happening with First Order, especially now that you still have the silencer, which arguably could be the better of the ship because it has more evade die. The modified Whisper only has 2 defense, and the whole tractor thing or jam thing rather, to where then it gets an extra defense die. So this could try to revitalize that ship, see it more on the table. I personally liked flying that ship just because of what it could do. I'm actually shocked that they've added this many points to them. I didn't know that they were struggling that much. You can let me know down below. You might be like, of course, you fool. Haven't you seen, all the lists that are submitted and the modified Whisper never sees the table. I like to give it a try, at least see what I could do with it. Now that I have all these points options and abilities to increase, whatever I can outload onto it. Now we're scrolling down to Galactic Republic, as you can see again, all the Force users, most of them are losing the talent slot and gaining an extra Force slot, or they are gaining extra modification slots. And ships that didn't have the talent slot are not going to be changed or adjusted. Um, you know, the same reason that we've covered multiple times of the combinations that you can add with it in these ship chassis, because they have shields, or you can adjust them with more attack power, synchronization, and all that stuff. They really saw that it wasn't the greatest thing to have on the table. Although I personally haven't seen a lot of Galactic Republic, only because my local players never had access to purchase it, or they're just not fully interested in it yet. They're still working with the Rebels, Resistance, and Imperials and all that as well. We then can scroll down to the Naboo Royal Starfighter with Anakin. So, of course, Anakin Force user, so they're going to lose the talent slot there. Um, uh, that's again, that's not something that I've seen a lot of. I haven't seen Anakin on the table with it or without it. Gaining an extra mod slot as well with the Force. I don't know. Maybe this will shake it up enough to where maybe I'll see Anakin on the table again, at a cost of 4. But usually I do see Rick Ali instead, or the Naboo Handmaidens. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to do anything to either make the ship not playable or now viable. We're now going to roll down to Anakin in the Y Wing, losing 5 loadout, and then also losing the modification slot. Didn't have a talent slot, so it's not going to lose that. And again, this is to stop, the synchronization to where it can shoot and then pass the lock off to somebody else, and then also reducing the loadout to, keep Anakin from taking bombs, turrets, and a droid and Force, and you can see where it can get a little bit crazy, on top of like a torpedo as well. Because as much as people used to laugh at the Y-wing when it first came out, people are now starting to see. Well, I won't say now. They're really starting to see the value of it. I definitely have seen it in local play, because people really take a look at it and go, "Oh, Anakin in a Y-wing. Well, that thing's ridiculous." And I personally, I've taken it as well. Um, and it was a riot. It wasn't that he was like unkillable, but it wasn't something that you really wanted to pay attention to. But if you ignored it, he really did punish you, with all of the things that he could possibly do, like removing the stress, then fully modded torpedoes on top of being able to drop bombs. Like, I could definitely see why they took this approach. Of course, I'm not going to be happy about it because I wasn't hurting myself, nor were the local players. But yeah, no, this is adjustment that we can all say is for the better. All right, so we are finally at the end here. The last thing is the HMP droid gunships. And even looking in this document, I did notice that Darth Maul and the Scimitar never had a talent slot. So I can personally say, it again, it never occurred to me that that was a problem or it needed to be addressed. So that's something that XWA was able to see, and I never even considered. But that's also, I never took the combinations that they saw. Like, I never took, you know, a lot of Force users in the Empire, in the Republic, or in a lot of other factions, and then, you know, double stamped, or, you know, double upgraded a lot of the redundant items, such as the ones that I've already mentioned. So with the HMP droids, you're going to see a loss of a cruise slot and also a bomb slot on DGS 286, which is also going to drop them to 3 for the chassis, and then also losing 4 for the upgrade and going down to a 6. So I could definitely see that. I have seen these locally. I have seen them in tournaments. Being able to take cruise bombs and having a good amount of loadout, which was 10 points at the time, I can definitely see why these things were troublesome. And now that this is at a chassis cost of 3, and then we can check out the Geonosian prototypes now going up to 4, we might see DGS being now the staple for the list and people trying to take them, because yeah, although the Geonosian had the double cannon slots, so you were seeing the synced laser cannons, and the amount of upgrades are relatively the same from where they were. So again, you might see to where DGS is now the ship that you want to take because that's the 3-point droid gunship, and then the Geonosian prototypes take a sidebar. I mean, it's going to basically be creativity. Whoever can list build the best, or take the time to really flush this out and see what they can do with it. Because as I can tell you, previously, there's not a lot of other points changes for a lot of other ships. So you can be the judge, see what comes out in your local meta group, and also submit those play tests to XWA and let them know it's like, hey, no, DGS shouldn't be 3 points either, or Geonosian is still worth it at 4 points because you now have 12 loadout. So not only can you take synced laser cannon, you can also take a modification as well as one of the tactical droids, which I know a lot of people were. So it's all a mixed bag. It is a lot of effort to not only do rules changes or updates and try to balance the points, uh, but try to utilize the community as a whole at the same time, because not everybody runs the same thing. People are doing almost whatever they want in the Wild West as we are slowly approaching as soon as Worlds is over. And you're going to see differences of opinion. You're going to see people that haven't played in years still have an opinion on certain things about the game. And they're going to, tell you how bad things are, what wrong choices everybody's making, or what they're excited to see. And I can tell you from a whole, my local group, they are enjoying the XWA points. They were not truly a fan of the AMG points, only because, yes, the points were balanced differently there. However, a lot of the extended ships didn't have what they needed in order to really play what they wanted, or they didn't want to branch out into ships because of the fact that AMG didn't want to balance them like they did with the standard and also the standard loadouts. So I hope you really do take a look at the changes, try to, keep in mind or understand why these changes were made, and then also understand that they're not permanent. This could be a short-term effect until finally, after March, when AMG has said goodbye to the game permanently. They all of a sudden may put out more documents, new scenarios that we can play test, new ships, because we are already starting to see standard loadouts for a new scenario that they want to put out, which was from the Force Awakens, to where they try to bring down the giant Death Star and see where things go from there. Because although people might disagree with what's coming out, they really haven't started showing their capabilities or what their plans are, because we still have to abide by AMG until those tournaments are long gone or at least completed, because they don't want to really go full steam ahead. There are people that still have to play the AMG points, and although they are, still toying with the XWA points, they don't want to venture out too far because that's just going to make things confusing, or it might mess up their gameplay. So, you might see things to where they're kind of lull for a while, and then all of a sudden attendance might come back, or people that say, I'm waiting, I'll see what comes out first. But overall, I'm not going to say these are the worst points updates, these are the best. I'm just going to say I understand. They've explained it incredibly well, more than I've seen other companies explain their points changes or adjustments. There's always opportunities for bans, there's always opportunities for more options in the long run. So at this point, I'm not going to really react like crazy or overreact. There's no reason to. My local players are thoroughly enjoying this version of X-Wing. I'm loving list building at this moment. I really feel as though this is the X-Wing that I've grown to love and play. There are other locals that still feel that this isn't X-Wing or it's not what they want, and I actually have a whole, probably 6 piles of X-Wing ships that I am still going through. I'm shipping them out to people for prizes. I'm repainting them, which is in my cabinet over here, so that I can send those out as prizes for people. I'm giving them away to people who come into my store locally, and I'm thinking about even starting up more for localized play for people who might want to meet up with me and play and challenge me to a game, to where they can either win a ship or just an alternate art card, or even reaching out to people who are running events. Like I know there was a campaign cancer that was in Canada, and I saw their post and I said, "Can I send you stuff?" And they said, "Oh, we're about to have it Saturday, so it probably won't make it." I said, "I'll send it to you anyways." And he said, "Great, I'll let it as prizes for next year." So you know, if you are out there and you're posting, I'll find you and I'll end up sending. I just sent out a bunch of packages today of ships and prizes because, again, I have an overwhelming load of them here. So if you've watched the video this far and you're looking for a specific ship or a certain type of, template or tokens, please, email us at reconspecialisttv@gmail.com. Or hit us up on Facebook. I'm at Patrick Patrick, or even leave a comment below, and I'll try to find a way to reach you. And I could, try to get rid of this huge collection of X-wing that has been donated to me to, the people that need it the most. That way, we can keep this game running. And I couldn't be happier right now because, again, I have a whole pile of ships that I'm repainting. And if you just saw my video about the Jaws that I just painted, go check that out, which is a YV666 that I've made it look like a shark, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below what you guys think. Please like and subscribe. We are going to keep putting out more X-Wing content. Don't you worry. We did take a large break there, but still, I have the setup right here for one of the HOTAC missions that I've been dying to make, and every time I make it, something happens. So I'm halfway through the video, and I'm trying to complete it. But I was excited to make this video here today. So, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Please like and subscribe, and go check out Recon Tokens for all of your token needs, because we're also going to be rebuilding that channel or that website as well soon enough. So thank you guys. Have a good day.